Hello, everybody. I wanted to introduce this idea that Brock and I have had to do somewhat of a podcast or just channel to talk about really anything. I'm thinking it's going to be mostly faith based, and then we're just going to kind of branch off from there and talk about relationships, as we prepare for marriage, our own relationship struggles and thoughts and ideas, and really try to represent both sides, his side, my side, that masculine, feminine energy, and um, discuss a lot of different books, different faith concepts, and just kind of have an open forum for life things. I mean, we're even considering gardening and things like that, growing trees or just all that kind of stuff. Anything that woodworking, art, whatever happens. So we're kind of just doing this. It's been something I've thought about for a long time and I really wanted to start doing. I'm a very deep thinker, and I think Brock is as well. I would have him on here. We're just sorting out all the joint sessions, and right now we've just got audio, but we'll probably start recording them together. Excuse me. But yeah, I hope that this turns into something fun, and this can be a forum for anything and everything, just a way to explore different ideas and get that out there. So I have no idea what it's going to become and how long we'll do this, but this is our Bell channel. So I hope this goes well. Okay, so the first question I saw on here was did you see the one, how do you respond to the idea that spirituality is a struggle?
Yes, definitely one of the ones I did on my half reading of this, my halfway prepping for today's podcast.
Don't say podcast on. Just kidding. It's fine.
Oh, we're both. Babe,
I know.
I'm a podcast rookie. This is really my second one ever. The first one really didn't count.
It's true.
So, I mean, we can lay that as a ground rule. We won't say the word podcast.
It's fine. I didn't actually answer this one exactly. I answered the next one. I thought about this one.
When I first, I guess, read this question, my first thought was yeah, I've been kind of raised and taught that as kind of a baseline of what that means, right? It's not going to be easy. It's definitely not always what you're going to want to do. People are not going to respect that about you necessarily for the most part from time to time, and doing it right and isn't always going to mean that things are going to turn out the way you want
it. Yeah, I mean, that's why I avoided this one, because it's just sort of an annoying idea that if you want spirituality, you're kind of just signing up for pain and suffering. I guess, and so we both agree with that one.
Yeah, we definitely agree on that. I would also say that another good way to look at it is you're going to get pain and suffering either way. So, signing up for doing it the way God tells us to do it versus not, the trust is in the fact that it's easier and better, regardless of the struggle, doing it right than it would be otherwise.
Yeah. So the next one was, what does it mean for you to keep your eyes fixed on Christ? And I have, which isn't really something like I understand. I think I understand the meaning of it, but I don't think I do it. But I put giving him the focus of my day rather than letting the worldly things become more important. And I just, a lot of times, even books like this are written like, make sure you're keeping the world, as far out of your purview as you can, or field of vision, and just focus. But to me, I'm like, I'm the opposite, where I'm only just now trying to make sure I keep God in the day to day, but that's not even like the angle it's supposed to be viewed as. It's supposed to be like that's your all in all.
Yeah, that's it.
And then everything else you have to like balance out well, but I'm not doing that. So I guess I don't know. Like, I don't really know practically what that would mean.
Well, I think one, the safe thing to say would be any human, regardless of how great we think they do it, also doesn't do it the way that we should. To me, it kind of means that you are in a constant state of being mindful of being obedient to Christ and listening for his instruction, following his will, doing all the basic things that are, written down in black and white. And I know it's almost like it's similar to the praying without ceasing, right? You should constantly be in communication with God and being focused on the fact that, one, you needed Christ because you suck, right? Two, without him, without him, even the greatest things you could do are just worthless. And I know there's been times when I've actually been mindful of those things for a consistent amount of time. I do know that I am just 100% in a better place as far as I'm literally just thankful for any and everything that happens during that day or that week, because I feel like it's almost like he's my boss, and whatever's going on during that week is something he's just having me handle. So even if it sucks and it's hard, it's like, okay, got it.
You're saying you think you do that now?
No, I said when I have done that.
Oh, okay. I'm not saying you're not. I'm just wondering if you. Just wondering. I don't know. I don't think I do that. I mean, I don't remember where this came from, but there was one time I wrote something down. I think it was before I even met you, but it was like I think it came from somewhere, but it was like any love or fortune, prosperity that comes your way is automatically more than what you deserve.
Yes.
And almost viewing any hardship as something that's just what you really deserve anyway. Like, oh yeah, this is normal. This is what I should be getting. So then when good happens, it's like, oh wow, I'm being extremely blessed.
Right. Well, that's extremely biblical, right? I mean, it's like if you use the word deserve, you can go ahead and just put out anything good, and you deserve death and hell. Period. That is the absolute thing you deserve, no matter how many good things you think you can do or how well you can do. The fact that you have sinned, you missed the mark. You are not the perfection that God requires.
Yeah.
It's you deserve nothing, right? Jordan Peterson talks about that also when he's like, you have to understand that life is full of hardship and suffering, and there's no guarantee that good things will happen. So when they do, you have to capitalize on it, enjoy it, take opportunities, because those things are the things that aren't guaranteed.
Yeah. That was the other. There was another piece of that. I don't recall what it. Oh, the Imitation of Christ that I was sharing with you yesterday. That was sort of about even if you did everything right your whole life, it would still be nothing. But it was kind of concluded with what you said, like that was the requirement. That was the bare minimum requirement, technically, of what you are to do with your life, was to live in God's will. So if you did that, then you just met literally the expectation you were supposed to meet. And anything different than that falls short of it. And so it's like, when you really put that in perspective, you're like, I will never meet that expectation. And even if I somehow did, that was the requirement anyway. As in, just like, that's what I asked you to do. Like,
yeah, good job. You're like a kid that didn't listen all day and finally remembered. Oh yeah, mom or dad told me to go put my cup away, and I go put my cup away. It's like, how good am I? Well, look, bro, Rock, you didn't listen all day. Just because you wouldn't put your cup away doesn't mean that.
But it's like even if you did right away with no qualms and did exactly the thing, so what, right? It's like, yeah, I asked you to, so that's why it should have been done. And I guess I never thought of it like the way your parents, would be a parent. It's like, because I asked you to, and it's be the same way from God, because I'm the one you should trust and do what I say. So when I ask you to do something, it shouldn't be, well, go ahead and convince me of why I should do it. Like, we like to say that to our kids, like, well, or to our parents, like, well, yeah, but like, why? Like, what's the reasoning behind it? And yeah, you can get into that, and there is reasons behind it, but it's also like, no, you just did the thing I asked because I asked you to, because I am your creator, and you should do the things I asked you to do. But yeah, I'm gonna go to the next one.
Go put the cup away, come back, and then ask me why it's important to put cups away.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add on that when we talk about like, I guess that topic in general, it reminds me like I don't know if it's actually true. I don't study Greek and Hebrew, but the word sin is actually a terminology used in archery. From what I understand, a sin means it's off mark, right? So literally, our sin is missing the mark that God has us at, and the fact that we're human and we're born a human and we're like Jesus is like, you've missed the mark. Trust me, it's happened. You know it, I know it, and so it's like kind of like part of that. By keeping your eyes on Jesus, it's like it's remembering like you've already missed the mark, and like anything that's coming to you is literally by the grace, goodness, and absolute unconditional love that Jesus has for you.
Yeah. This next part was difficult. I think almost the passage that comes next, which was the, do not let anyone lead you astray. Anyone who goes on sinning is of the devil type thing. That passage that, I don't know if you want to like read along or just look at it again, but like, I think it's obvious, what does John say the reason that Jesus came to earth, or what is the reason, to destroy the devil's work? But
oh yeah, to be dangerous, to destroy things.
Yeah, the second question though is what I'm getting at, which is like, what do you find unsettling in the passage? And I wrote down the things I thought were unsettling, but I kind of want to know what you thought. Like, do you know the passage I'm talking about? Or I'll just read it again. Or do you already know?
No, I know. And it's weird. Maybe it's just because I'm a dude, but I'm like, there was nothing unsettling about that. I was like, yeah.
What
bring
would
the
the
rain.
dude have to do with it?
What's that?
What would the dude have to do with it?
Well, I don't know. It kind of felt like he's like a special operations uh, insertion team that's coming to like stack bodies and wreak havoc.
Well, yeah, but that was like the one line there, but there was like he says, the one who does what is sinful is of the devil, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. And the reason that God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. No one who's born of God will continue to sin. And that's the part where, like, to me, the unsettling thing is, this is how we know the children of God are, who they are, and who the children of the devil are. Anyone who does not do what is right is not God's child, nor is anyone who does not love their brother and sister. So, like, that really opens up this chasm of, like, none of us seem to be the child of God. That's what I found unsettling. And I wrote,
Right.
anything that I do wrong would make me of the devil, ? And if I'm unable to stop sinning, am I not a child of God then? And so that's what I mean by, like, what I interpreted as unsettling as, like, ooh, that's like a real, and it's clear cut. I mean, it's not wrong. It's just like, wow, like, if you're not on the straight and narrow, you are of the devil. Like, if you're not doing God's will, you're doing the devil's work.
Right. Yes, I would agree with all that. And it is unsettling because it's like not one person even, at any point in their life, no matter how devout and how fully they give their life over to Christ, and it's like you're not sinless even after that. You're still, one, you're still human. Two, you can claim adoption into the kingdom because of the fact that Jesus bore the weight of the consequences for your sin. And even after that, you're still human. And so it's like you're going to screw that up.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Like, this passage would lead you maybe to think or draw a conclusion that that means because you're still going to sin, you are then not a child of God. Which I'm not saying that's what the truth is. It's just.
Right. I would be interested to.
I think this is what leads you,
because
this would be
a bunch of different. Go ahead.
No, I mean, what? Look at a bunch of different what?
No, I was going to say it'd be interesting to look at a bunch of different not study guides. What are they? Commentaries, where multiple different prominent Christian intellectuals are like would break that down and kind of explain those things.
Yeah,
I'm not exactly an expert.
I mean, I guess the only thing I can conclude from most of this as I've been reading it is that extreme dependence on God, which is without that is what that would mean. Without what Jesus did, if you sin and walk that line of sinning, and I think you could at least say without repentance, like if you're repenting and whatnot, maybe that changes that story, but it's like if you are, no one who is born of God will continue to sin because God's seed remains in them and they cannot go on sinning because they have been born of God. I'm probably belaboring this. It's just like, yeah, like what does that mean? Yeah, like even your continued imperfection, it's like, how would you then be a child of God? And anyway, I mean, that's what it says. What questions would you want to ask John? I mean, those are the things I was thinking of, like, wow, like, I mean, what we know is, I mean, this is sort of that book I was reading, Rescued, where you literally learn the despair and darkness we were supposed to be before Jesus did that. It's weird to think that the people that were alive before Jesus came to earth and did that, like, that's it. They would have just been doomed to hellfire, you know what I mean? Because it's like there's nobody here to take on that of your sins. But we'll keep going.
One thing
I have like a lot of questions though, so.
I know, but this is something we listened to today. So,
okay.
So when we were listening to the really exciting tales of the Old Testament things, when there was like different types of sins and like different types of sacrifices for it, and which each tribe had to come in and do, and it gets to a point and they're like, essentially one person, they were out picking up sticks on the Sabbath, and so they're like, yeah, stone, that's a stone. But when he clarifies the terminology that it's actually like, I don't remember what it is, but it's like, it's almost as if they were out there doing that in defiance on purpose, because they were just not going to be, what is it? Like they were obviously not going to assimilate into God's law. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I'm trying to remember. There was a term they used for it.
Huh.
But
I'm not recalling.
So maybe, I said all that just to say, what, cool, never mind. We can probably move on.
I'm not saying that I can't remember it. Maybe if you remember it later, just bring it up or like the word or whatever. I'm trying to recall what you're saying. I can't though. When I was reading this, I still haven't been able to quite understand it. But that proto-evangelium, whatever, where he's saying, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Genesis 3:15. And then it says, theologians call this proto-evangelium, the first gospel, a declaration of the good news of a savior. And I'm trying to understand that. Like, I'm not sure I ever interpreted that as being the first declaration of good news.
I was talking about the between, so in this one, he's talking to Satan. I'm going to put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. So anything, like his seed being the things that come about because of his actions, so to speak.
Okay.
And like, he shall bruise your head and you shall bruise his heel. Like, you're going to hurt him when he's there, but it's insignificant because he's going to take a headshot, right? And so he's going to undo anything you possibly could ever do in anyone's life to get them away from you. His mere presence and perfect life will be sacrifice enough, and anyone that wants it and is willing to follow him and be like him, there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay, I think I was trying to understand it that way, so I think that makes more sense. But yeah, I mean, that is like a really interesting first declaration of like, you'll never overcome my offspring, I guess. Okay, so now let's scroll down. These are the actual discussion questions. How does considering Jesus' mission to destroy the devil's work change the way that you view your relationship with God? And how does it change your view of what it means to follow after Christ?
Yeah, my answer is kind of short. Like, it doesn't really change it.
Why not? Like, would it change if his mission wasn't to destroy the devil's work?
I mean, it doesn't change my view because, like, to me, that just seems like, yeah, of course he's here to destroy what Satan was doing.
Yeah, okay. I guess that would make sense. I mean, I'm just thinking about this for a second.
Well, that's fine. You can take all the time you need. And I just want to say, as you're thinking, I like the way your hair's pulled up. I do. You know, like how you want, babe.
Oh, okay. I was trying to read my note. There it is. So I said, I guess it wouldn't necessarily change how I feel, but I think it's a good reminder of the why. Like, he loves me so much to fight for me. And then I said, his mission, that is to destroy the devil's work, would live on in us to fight the devil and his deeds. So it's like, maybe I would say that could kind of shape my view of my relationship with God. Is like, it's not just forming that friendship and getting to know him and doing his will, but it really like puts like this targeted, you are here to go out and do this mission that lives on through me in you, or through you in me, whatever, one of those. I might have just said the same thing twice. Okay. How is destroying the works of the devil part of God's plan from the beginning, and why was this necessary in light of Adam and Eve's disobedience? I didn't like this question. I didn't really know I didn't understand it. So I'm just kind of like,
I would say how is destroying the works of the devil part of God's plan from the beginning. The basics of God is omnipotent, omniscient. He knows everything already, sees everything already. He doesn't even exist in space and time like we do, right? It's like,
so like he knew the devil was gonna do that anyway, and planned to like bring a savior to save us.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I'm just like, okay, I'm a dumb.
You're what?
I only know things. I said I'm a dumb human.
Oh.
I only know things as it pertains to I'm a piece of matter in space and time. Like, I only know how to think linearly. I can only really conceptualize things as it is in space with me. So the idea that obviously God created those things for us to be in. So it's like he literally exists outside of that. So in a very rudimentary way I've heard it put is like, look, imagine you're the author of a book. You look and you start reading in that book at a certain thing, and things are happening at that point in the book, but it doesn't mean that the other part of the book doesn't already say things and is not already written, and you don't already know it. It's a very loose analogy, but it kind of helped me understand, like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, got it. He just knows everything. But then why was this necessary in the light of Adam and Eve's disobedience? It's like, well, he kind of spells that out, I think. Like, you sinned, you are now imperfect. And everything that comes from you will be imperfect because of that. Like,
yeah.
You literally tarnished every human. And so, like, it is now necessary for me
You're breaking up a little bit.
Fix that. Sorry. It's necessary now because of that I fix that, because I don't want to just obviously destroy you. I tend to, love you because I created you.
Next question. What are the implications for your own struggles when you consider that Jesus has the power to take away the devil's weapons of destruction? It kind of makes me think, like, sometimes the way questions like this are written or the way people talk about stuff like this in books and whatnot, which isn't bad, it's just it makes you feel like it's silly of you to even worry about
Yeah.
any single thing that's wrong with your life
Right.
or wrong with
And
you.
it's also written in a very academically advanced thought process, and it's like, it's not the way I think.
But I mean, what would
But
you?
yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like, yeah, if I think about that, it's like, one, why do I ever worry about anything?
I mean, I guess that is literally the thing he's always saying. Like, stop being anxious about things.
Right. And I think the other thing is it's hard for us to remember. I don't know if it's just because, hashtag society does it or whatever, but it's like good versus evil, God versus the devil. And it's like, it's almost like we're seeing it as if they are even similar pieces on the same playing field. When the reality is they're not. Like, it's just,
Well, maybe that's
God
just the way,
has
like, the
supreme
devil's
authority
made
and
it look.
sovereignty over it. It's just easily, it's like, you are a created being and you're rebelling against me. And it's almost no different to do that to Satan as it is to do that to me if I wanted to go out and create havoc.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe that's literally what the devil's been doing, is causing us to think he's this equal and opposite entity that he isn't. Although you could argue he's extremely powerful in what he does do, but
Oh, yeah. Well, he's been playing this chess game for thousands of years, right? I mean, in that sense, we would not be able to compete with him. We can't outsmart it, can't outmaneuver him, and there's no way to win heads up against him. It's just not.
Okay, next one. I did not have an answer for this one, by the way, so I'm hoping you do. When have you experienced this kind of power in your life most recently?
Every time I look in your eyes and experience joy.
Well, could come through a little better. You lead with that sometimes.
It's interesting. It's the first time I've heard that, Brock. Maybe
put that on a Hallmark card.
Yeah, I didn't. It actually was like, what is it, like a little, what do they call it? Things hit home a little bit. Like, when have I experienced this kind of power most recently?
I couldn't think of it. Like, and I'm also thinking of like grandiose things, like some miracle, but it's like, but it's not like it. The fact that I couldn't think of anything caused me to think that it didn't exist or wasn't powerful. It made me think that maybe I just wasn't like as dependent as I should be in trying to like solve everything myself. Because I think if you're doing that, then there is no opportunity for that to happen. So I don't know.
Agree. Yeah, it seemed to me like the way it really conviction. There's the word I was looking for. It was convicting.
Oh yeah.
Convicting question, because I was like, yeah. What that really just made me think was how little I keep my eyes fixed on Jesus. Because it's like, I guess it's from the topics prior, and so it's like, so how good question. How are you experiencing this? And it's like, oh.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and mark that question, and I kind of want to get through these because I made my own from the chapter that you didn't read. And there's a little bit of like better questions I feel like I came up with, so we're just gonna move on and get through these. How can you celebrate both individually and communally the triumph of Jesus' victory over sin and death, and how does celebrating this victory empower you to experience freedom in the midst of struggles? I wrote something and crossed it out. All I said was, like, personally, the celebration would be, like, spending more time with God, I think. But I don't know. Like, those are the questions that I find kind of awkward. Like, I don't know what I would.
Also, maybe, the time you spend in like community and fellowship with other believers also, right? And maybe a little bit of that could go back with, being focused on Christ. Because the way the question is phrased, like, how to celebrate this victory empower you. Well, I mean, I guess that alone, right? That part of it alone is like, yeah, it's a thing that I can remember and be mindful of and incorporate into my very being, where in the midst of a struggle, I can focus on that and not the struggle.
Yeah. Already at like 34 minutes, so I'm gonna skip that next one because I also didn't.
It's fine. Yeah,
There's some more.
Good. I thought maybe 20 minutes. But we're crushing it.
You thought what, 20 minutes?
I thought maybe we'd spend 20 minutes going through all of this, if that, and then.
Oh, no. Let's see, where did I put my next one? Yeah, there were a couple questions that came after, like, the respond section. Says, as you consider what it means to engage in spiritual war, to live in the freedom Jesus has won, where do you feel most vulnerable and what are your areas of weakness right now? I did answer that one. I said I feel most vulnerable in the loneliness, anxiety, and the feeling that nobody really loves me. Where would you be most vulnerable, or what is your areas of weakness?
Probably the opposite of that, when I'm feeling like, oh, I got this, no problem, supremely confident, and, confident to a fault where I probably feel like I don't even need any help.
That would make sense. Yeah, that can be just as dangerous.
Oh, more so. I would say, honestly, much more dangerous.
Okay, so now I'm going to move into the notes and things I had on the actual chapter. So, let's go back.
And just for the official record, I did not read this chapter. I was mistaken. And so I will be hearing.
I thought you were trying to say you were misinformed.
Do I?
I said I thought you were trying to say you were misinformed. Led astray. And look how we are now on Stand by Roads and Look and ask for the ancient past where the good way is and walk in it and find rest for your souls. I did like that one. Although it's like, what are the ancient paths? I just wrote that quote down, I guess. Not really a whole lot to say about it, but I did like it. Somewhere in there, though, he's talking about, this section's called The Path Toward Rest for the Soul. But he's also talking about, like, survival. Like, I think that's why he called it, this chapter is called The Survival Guide. Like, how do you actually, like, make it through all of this? Anyway. And so, one thing he put I really liked was humility is the doorway to wisdom. It's like, okay. So it was kind of odd reading the questions about the questions about the warfare, the destruction that God causes, and then like in several sections here he's talking about how God looks at us. He looks at us not with eyes of condemnation, but compassion. And then I'm like, really, that's like very strong difference than all the destructive behavior we're just talking about with everything else. And I thought it felt kind of weird because it made me feel like some of that is like what causes me to be like presumptive on the mercy of God. Like, well, he'll always just love me and see me with kind eyes. He's never going to look upon me with the destructive mindset. But then like you read the other passage that's like, well, if you're still continuing to sin and you just can't help yourself, well, you're just of the devil. I'm like, well, then maybe he would be destructive against me. And it's like this very confusing place to be where I'm like, am I in a place of not being condemned and of compassion, or am I in a place of, you know what I mean? Like, because, and I like that because you see these different sides of him, like, but like, where would I really stand? I couldn't possibly always stand, that's my thought anyway, on the side of like, he never looks upon me with eyes of condemnation, but with compassion. Like, really, all the time? Like, would that be all the time? You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I've been hitting the ground of judgment quite a bit. Like,
Anyway, it wasn't really anything to talk about. I just was like, huh. Let me think about it. Like, so he goes through talking about, struggling with sin, anxiety, all that kind of stuff, and our helpless nature. And then I want to read at least a paragraph where he says this, because I wrote this question out. Here it is. Some of you reading this find yourself deeply discouraged. You are plagued by desires, impulses, addictions that you want to be free from. And you have asked God many times to take them away, and he hasn't. So maybe you try to rationalize that what you're doing is okay and make some kind of uneasy peace with it. But the guilt remains. You are asking, that was the question I wrote down, is this just who I am, and is this the best I can be or it can be? That really struck me again. Like, I think that way a lot. Where is this just it? Is this just the best I'm ever going to be? And if not, like, what the heck is it going to take for me to get any better than this? Okay.
All right. So as it pertains to, is it the best that it can be or that we can be? I think that is not really a constant evolution, but it's like a constant sanctification to us as Christians as we walk through our lives with Christ, that it becomes better.
Well, what about the question, is this just who I am?
Oh, no. Well, I guess there's two answers. One answer is yes, it is just who you are. You're human, you're sinful, you deserve nothing. That is literally what you are. However, you have Christ, and through Christ, you can be new, right? You can be different. You can be literally born as something else than what you were. And without that, no, you are who you are, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, another one I really liked is he's talking about fighters, whether that's like, in the ring fighters or even like soldiers and stuff like that. But he says, I never would have thought about this because the best fighters are those who know they have been fought for. And I'm like, I think that would be true. I don't know. Like, I mean, and that is sort of the construct of what we have. Like, what we're not asked to do is like, it's not like we're kept from the truth that he died on the cross for us for our sins until we believe in him and all that. Okay, well then now that you know that, by the way, he did all this for you. It's like that already happened. And he already loves us before we ever even understood and loved him back. So like, it definitely makes sense in this structure, but it puzzled me for a second. Like, would that be true? You know, the best fighters are those who know they've been fought for. Well, I mean, even when you look at the movies and are like, you know, somebody training for something, like, yeah, there's the training. But I don't think anybody would actually want to watch a movie if all you watched was just somebody train really, really well and just do well, and that was it. They just trained really well. Whatever. Yeah, I know you would want to. No, but I'm saying it wouldn't be this, like, mega inspirational Hollywood, you know, cling at you type thing. It's because you have to watch the struggle and like, I mean, them fighting for themselves, but somebody's fighting for them too. You know what I mean? And so it's like, but it's sort of the idea of, well, what if that wasn't the case? What if somebody hadn't fought for you? Are you then not capable of being the best fighter? No, and you don't have to think of it just as fighters, but just like what we're talking about now. Like, if to me it's odd because it sometimes feels like this conditional thing. Like the statement sounds conditional, like, which maybe it's not. It's just saying you fight better that way, but it almost sounds like, well, we wouldn't fight to know Christ if we didn't know he already died for us and did all that. It's like, is that true? Well, and I think that's the thing you don't want to be true. You don't want that to be why you are. You know, it's weird, right?
Yeah. Well, I would have to, again, I didn't read that chapter, and I don't know kind of the context it's in.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have to sit on that one. Just yeah, that it was just I got stuck on that line. Um, so there were some questions in it though. And again, I still think these are pretty high level, so like you don't have to have read it. Oh, so now I gotta go back to the actual session 1, and it's the personal study. And it says, what does it mean in your present season of life that you have been freed to fight? And what is the greatest battle you're facing right now? Do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
You go.
I mean, free to fight. I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of what I like about this book specifically, and what drew me in was the counterpart of war to the rest, which is like, you know, we've been freed from sin, but we're free to do something. Like I said before, it's like God's mission is supposed to be living through us, and so you're freed to go fight.
Purpose.
You're not free to go do whatever you want, and I think that's something. Maybe it wasn't Jordan Peterson, but it was that idea of, you know, you have the freedom not to do what you want, but to do what you're supposed to do. And then another quote was like, sin is the failure to live freedom well. But what does it mean in my present season? Well, I think there is an interesting idea, I guess, that like if you believe in the deceit of the devil, you might believe you don't have the capability within you, or well, you don't really have it within you, but you don't possess the ability to fight this spiritual warfare he's waging against you. versus like really understanding this is what you're meant to do. You're not like you're actually specifically created for that. You know what I mean? Like instead of I don't know how to describe it, but then I think it has brought a different perspective, as in it's like it's actually what I'm fully equipped if I would just seek God to do it. I'm actually 100% fully equipped to do that. Meaning, like, we know we can succeed at it. The question is, are you going to wage that war and wage that fight? That's the only question you would have versus, can I even do it? Well, you were literally created and designed and equipped to do it with the help of God. But the greatest battle that I'm facing right now, I think this will always be the battle I face, where it's like that unknown uncertainty and like trusting the path there, where you're just kind of living on the breadcrumbs. Like, what do you do next? Okay, now what do I do next? Like, you don't have the roadmap ahead of you. And I hate that. I really don't like having the answers to what happens next. It's not a way I like to live.
My biggest struggle would be something similar, except it's the realizing, like getting off the sideline and getting in the game, remembering that, okay, you didn't just get freed from the POW camp to go back to the base and play golf. Right?
Yeah.
There's war going on. So come on, get out here. Remember who you are and why you are.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just kind of meandering through life day to day, like,
Yeah, and I think there's a few questions coming up that'll like point more to it, but it's like more on that where your point and purpose slash mission in your everyday life has nothing to do with your happiness. It has nothing to do with how happy you. Yeah. So, yeah. All right, I'm gonna go to the next one. When have you experienced God's presence in the midst of your daily battles? How does knowing He is with you make a difference when you encounter problems? And that's what we talked about before. Like, I think I have a hard time noticing that, like, that He was in it, in the middle of it. So that's probably something I should pay more attention to.
Yeah, it's something we can all pay more attention to.
I mean, have you experienced His presence in your daily struggles or struggles at all? Like, have you ever?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like when you're mindful of His presence and fixed upon Him to be purposeful in the way you're living. It almost transforms the way that you even see struggles and hardships. It's like, no, it doesn't make them any more fun to go through, but it's like
you're saying like you
like
have
the
actually
peace and the hope that you just have innately is higher.
and you're saying you've actually been able to experience that at times.
Correct. Without a doubt.
What helped you do that? I mean, what sort of mechanisms or policies did you put in place to make that happen?
Oh, well, typically those are pretty bad, rough spots where I had literally failed in every capacity on my own and was at the bottom of any form of basically coming to the end of yourself and then realizing like I could never do this anyway. And then it's almost like the last, which I think a lot of people are pretty good about that. And I think I'm probably one of the best about it when it comes to it's the every single other opportunity, option, and method will be tried almost on my own, independent, until I exhaust every single thing to get to the end of it. And it's like, there's the reckoning and the realization.
Yeah. I'm going to read this next thing. I like what you said. I'm going to read this next thing I wrote down as, which says that see what stands out. Oh, it was right there in front of me. I did not have to even look it up. Whoops. All right. This is Titus chapter 2, 11 to 14. For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people, training us to renounce ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in the present age, waiting for our blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness and to purify for himself a people for his own possession who are zealous for good works. I mean, I don't really know. What do you think? I think something that I was asking myself from that passage, though, was are we actually motivated to renounce destructive ways? You know, like.
I don't think
Yeah,
not only we get motivated to renounce destructive ways until the destruction starts happening.
Yeah, and I think that's what this proactive thought process should lead you to, is away from that, which is you should want to avoid that for the purposes of doing his will, rather than wanting to do it to escape the suffering that it brings you once you, like you described, like go through every other thing. Which is funny you said that, because we're about to get to some of that, but yeah, I kind of agree with you. I like this question. It says, do you think of God as a gracious teacher and trainer, or as a perpetually disappointed father?
Kind of both.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that there's disappointment happening. Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, depending on, it's kind of like, when you're a mom or a dad and your kid starts walking, you're super happy and you're applauding them, right? And they're like toddling across the floor. And when they're 9, if they're still like falling down and like getting up and toddling and expecting to be like praised and cherished for that, it's like, look, no, you should be running around. Your walking should not be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think there's a lot of times where, like we don't grow as Christians, and it's like you need to do that. Like you
Well,
need to be.
I don't know if I've ever seen him as a disappointed father, but I could see the training being different in like the circumstance you've just described, where instead of the training you would maybe provide a toddler, which is, here's some things to cling on to, you would remove all of that from the 9-year-old's, position. So, meaning like in the different stages of your life, the way he's trying to train you and what he's trying to train you for is going to feel a lot different. So, like the methods used for training in one area of your life, even if it's like the same methods in a different phase of your life, or even if it's for the same purpose in a different phase of your life, the training methods could be different because you're like not growing, you know. But those are like the mysteries, I think, of God, where like you can often look back and say like, wow, that actually helped me even though it was so painful. I think at one point I heard a homily or sermon that was saying that he's like performing surgery on you, but under like anesthetic. And so it's like he's trying to fix this stuff in you, but you know, you're gonna have to recover and it's gonna hurt. And it's this process that's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
You gotta go through physical therapy and get back on the horse, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. So this is the next part, and these are the last few questions I had. And this, above all, I think this was areas I wanted to spend more time thinking about. But the passage is Isaiah 55, 1 to 2, and it's, "Come, all you who are thirsty, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without cost. Why spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? Listen to me, and eat what is good, and you will delight in the richest of fare." Question was, what have you pursued in your life in hopes that it would provide lasting satisfaction? Things like relationships, money, success, status, possessions, etc. You know, what we're going after instead of going after God to, well, it's like what you were describing. Like, what would actually be those places you go to until you finally end up at, okay, I've got to just change my mindset to be dependent on God.
Right. I think a big one that I would say is like security financially and establishing, you know, the ability to self-manage life.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I don't know if I really pursue money. Definitely relationships. And like trying to make my relationships perfect, thinking that's going to be this solvable, you know, solution to everything.
Yeah, like the thing that makes it better.
Yeah, like constantly working on myself. And I mean, I think I've probably pursued all of those things. Next question was, what do you long for most right now? How have you been pursuing it? I mean, I think it's no secret I've really been longing for a fruitful marriage and trying to get there and have all the right tools I need to do it and be successful at it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
What do you long for most right now, and how have you been pursuing it?
Yeah, that, like I would agree with what you said. And that would be the most prevalent thing in both our lives.
It's the thing that you long for the most right now? I did not know that, actually. Learned something new. I didn't know that that was what you longed for the most. Um, what am I chasing that draws my focus away from God? I mean, I need to be better at cleaning my house, but I definitely create this picture in my mind of like this well-organized home and this perfect routine of a life that accomplishes everything, and that's the thing I need to be doing. And that can sometimes take precedence over the things I should be doing. This is the last thing. I actually did want to discuss this with you, but it's like thoughts on the battlefield or like spiritual warfare. And he describes, you'll see two different people out there on the battlefield, like the calm, still, unaffected, or the agitated and actively fighting individual. Maybe they look anxious or whatever. And he was like, the one that's calm and still is dead. They're unaffected because they're not even in the fight. And he's basically like talking about how the spiritually dead don't even struggle with sin because they don't see it as like an issue. But if you're like actually out there in it, it's lively. You're like animated, I guess, and engaged in it. But the last thing was like, you've not been freed from your struggle against sin by what Jesus did. You've been freed to struggle against sin.
Right. Yeah, it's not, you don't get a free ride for the rest of life because, and everything's sunshine and rainbows and nothing's a struggle and you're going to do everything right.
Well, it's like that mission statement of, you could easily look at what he's done and think, I could exhale in peace that it's finished, it's done. But really, it's like, no, I've just given you the license and the wherewithal to go out and fight, which you have to do. But my last thing was this open-ended question of like, what does it mean, or how do you struggle well? Like that's like the C.S. Lewis thing of the problem of pain. Like, what does it really look like when you're struggling well? And I don't know if we really know anymore.
Yeah, I would think it has a lot to do with I would think it has a lot to do with being purposeful about it, being joyful in the things we were talking about earlier, where we understand the fact that we don't deserve anything and that we're essentially operating on the good graces of what Jesus has done for us.
Like, what does it look like to go struggle with sin?
I guess that,
or like fight against it.
Being joyful and purposeful and consistent while struggling, even though it's not fun to struggle. But like doing it in a way that it's like, this is for a purpose and this is what I'm here to do.
So, making it your mission.
Right.
What do you feel like your mission is right now?
Good question.
Do you feel like you even have one?
Oh, I feel like I probably totally have one and I'm like not doing it.
Well, I just mean like the one that you would have created on your own. Like our own man-made mission for ourselves.
No, I don't really have that either.
Okay, well, that was all. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I thought those questions were good. And I didn't read the chapter, so I didn't really have a chance to come up with. I didn't know we were We're doing our own questions.
Oh, it just was. Yeah, I did say we were gonna go through the questions together, but it's fine. We'll figure it out. All right.